Ignoring the tidal waves being created by electric mobility, we are going to focus in this episode on the other big technological shift in the global automotive landscape, that is of downsizing. Small capacity engines being slapped with turbos to do the job of hauling and also being conservative when it comes to fuel consumption. We have a collection of 3 cars here, all with 1-liter turbocharged engines, to see just what is the fuss all about when it comes to small capacity turbo engines. Hello and welcome to Pitstop. Let's get on with the drive and see how things used to be and how they have progressed over all these years. Parking them in close proximity gives you a sense of how exploited the term SUV has really become. Back in the day, the Tata Safari was a proper SUV. So was the Mahindra Scorpio. Even Maruti had one in the form of the Grand Vitara, and Hyundai had the massive and massively obtuse-looking Taigun to fill up its SUV portfolio. But look at what we now get as SUVs. It's not to focus on these cars and criticize them for the heck of it. It's a general trend across the industry, across the segments, and across manufacturers. Every brand seems to be doing the same recipe, so the memo went to everyone. Between these 3, the Magnite is the most uninspiring design in my view. There are some bits that are okay in isolation, but as an overall exercise when it comes to styling, this one really is not as sharp as its cousin, the Renault Kiger. The Fronx is a peculiar thing. The front end is not completely in sync with the rest of the design because that Grand Vitara front end might look okay on the Grand Vitara, but in this application, it looks very out of place. Having said that, the rear end is where all the beauty and the action really lies, and that is the best angle to view the Fronx in. The Taigun is smart and non-offensive, and there is nothing really wrong about it when it comes to the looks. Maybe the overload of chrome is something that could have been done away with, but that's about it. And like with the Fronx, it is again the rear end of this car which looks very smart because of the light signature at the back. Inside, it is much the same order. The Nissan is forgettable to say the least. The design, well, there is hardly any design to talk of. It's just big slabs of grey with different textures and colors and different surface finish. It looks extremely underwhelming, and even the quality levels are not that great. Given that it is among the cheapest crossovers in the country today, but the compromises made to build and market it on budget are too many, especially when you consider that it can go on to 9.5 to 10 lakh rupees depending on which city you are in, which is not small money at all. You can get a perfectly good Tata Altroz in the same price bracket, and that's a better car, just that it's not a crossover. And that is pretty much the same issue with the Fronx as well. It's between 15 to 16 lakh rupees, and that is for the 1-liter with the 6-speed automatic transmission that we have. And to think of it, it's just silly where the prices have moved on to and the amount of car that you can get at these price points. But at least the Fronx is a lot better on the inside. The softness of the cabin experience, the general sense of quietness and the better engineering feel is very evident when you move into the Fronx from the Magnite. But it is the design of the cabin that does not speak to me. I think there are too many things going on, too many colors, too many quality levels. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, but on the whole, it's not terribly bad on any scale. The quality of the Taigun is just not the same as Volkswagens of the past, and that's also true for the Virtus. Not that they're bad, just that they're not in the same league of quality that Volkswagen has been famous for. But overall, the quality of the Taigun is okay, the design is very good, and everything is occupant-centric. It's also reasonably practical, and the seats are lovely and comfortable. The space is where it kind of struggles because it's mediocre at best when you compare it against a mid-size crossover like the Kia Seltos or the Hyundai Creta, but it is a fairly well-packaged product. On features, Magnite is about okay, I would say. It's got a very, very gimmicky graphic in the instrument pod, and I'm not a fan of it at all. Beyond this, all the basic stuff is there. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, there is voice recognition as well, and this car is also going to read out your WhatsApp messages on the speakers. On safety, it's all taken care of by dual airbags, ABS, EBD, anti-roll bar. There is traction control, hill start assist, and more such stuff. It's a very similar story in here in the Fronx as well. You get all the connected technology and the playback support is all there. So you get wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, there is wireless charging as well. And there is also a head-up display and a 360-degree camera. So all the features that you expect from a car of this size, this sort, this segment, it's all covered very nicely. And safety is delivered through the electronic stability program. There are 6 airbags. So yeah, all that regular stuff is packed in here. The screen integration is by far the best in the Taigun, so there is a lot to be learned from Volkswagen here. And the feature list is pretty similar to the other two. CarPlay, Android Auto, both wireless, of course. There is a wireless charging tray as well. It's got ventilated seats. It's got glove box, which is cooled as well. Electronic stability control, EBD, ABS, brake assist. It's got anti-slip regulation and whatnot. So even safety is well catered for. Magnite is a curious case of contradictions and complications. The 1-liter turbo engine is genuinely sprightly, I would say. Its 100 horsepower peaks out at 5,000 RPM and the torque is rated at 160 Newton meters for the manual, and it comes between 2800 and 3600 RPM. There is an automatic version as well, in which the torque figure dips to about 152 Newton meter, but comes in a little earlier in the rev range. What's impressive is that it uses cylinder coating technology from Nissan's awesome flagship, the GTR. It reduces resistance inside the engine, cuts down some weight as well, and improves heat management and combustion properties. The power delivery of this engine is actually quite great, but only when you go past 2200 RPM. Below that, it can be a bit of a struggle if you're caught in a situation of doing quick overtakes. But once it picks up pace, it's actually fairly good. The steering is what makes this a very strange experience. It's weirdly heavy at low speeds and vaguely light at high speeds. There is just no coherence to it, I would say. The chassis feels like it can be a decent amount of fun, but the sum of parts don't make the case for it. Which is the opposite with the Fronx. It is genuinely entertaining in a lot of ways despite some really irritating issues, and it's mostly down to that engine. It's a perky little thing. The 6-speed automatic is also okay. It's a little slow to react, but if you learn to live around its response time and hold on to the gears through the paddles, you will have enough and more performance to unpack. The steering, that is a major issue because it lacks that sense of communication that you seek from it. It's mostly non-linear, and the bizarre and typical Maruti issue of stickiness just remains in this one as well. But it is the chassis that shines and complements that excited little engine. The composure around the bends is good, the compliance of the suspension is commendable, and the general mechanical grip that you get from the Fronx is of very high order. Below the boost, it's not as irksome as the Magnite's 1-liter. The build-up is just fine, you can live with it, and once it wakes up, it really starts moving. Its 100 horsepower comes in at 5,500 RPM, so that's really digging your right foot deep in. But the Fronx is light and it tips the scales of curb weight at 1,060 kilograms for this automatic variant, which means it's an almost 100 horse per ton car. It's a fun little thing, honestly, and I would have loved to have the manual with this car, but sadly it wasn't available. But I can imagine how good it will be with the manual. But the pleasure of a good manual gearbox with a frisky small turbo engine is not missed thanks to the Taigun. The shifts are good, the clutch feel is strong, and the engine, with its 115 horsepower peaking at almost the limit of the engine RPMs, is a good companion for the most part. As with any small capacity, small turbo engine, The initial progress is not really mind-blowing, but the healthy 178 Newton-meter of torque is what makes all the difference. You don't feel the engine lagging as much as it feeling a little droopy. Hit it with a dose of acceleration and it wakes right up. I know it's a little odd to say this for a small 1-liter turbo engine, but work within its limitations and it can be addictive and also sometimes hilarious. The dynamic balance is by far the best. The Fronx does feel energetic, but the Taigun feels energetic and composed at the same time. The transitions are fluid, the controls are perfectly judged, the suspension is a great in-between setup. It's somewhere in the middle of damping greatness and compression control. So it gives you the progressive vertical oscillation to offer good ride, and also the controlled lean compression to exhibit a good dynamic capability. It's a great thing to drive. The Magnite is not greatly refined and suffers quality issues. Its engine is temperamental, but it is good on outright performance once it crosses the boost threshold. The Fronx is a mixed bag. Great perky little engine is the highlight, and the chassis dances well as well. But the steering, that's odd. The Taigun is also compromised. The quality is just not what you expect of Volkswagen, but the chassis is solid, the steering is fluid, and that gives the engine a great foundation to flourish and show off. Lovely, lovely thing.